Do I introduce myself?
You
I'm
can.
Andrew.
It's on.
I'm Andrew. I'm Uncle Brian's nephew. I'm making white bread with PooLiSh. I think it's pronounced PooLiSh, but I could be wrong. It might be PooLiSh. Anyway, it's coming from this book, Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, which is excellent, by Ken Forkish, right? Made several of his stuff. I've made this before, but it's been a long time. The introduction says, this recipe makes a palate-sparkling, almost buttery flavored bread with a thin, crisp crust. And I'm going to make 2 loaves. One is going to be bread. The other is going to be, we're going to break it up and use it for pizza tomorrow, artisan pizza, which is going to be great. Okay, so the concept of this bread is you have to make the PooLiSh. I'm going to pronounce it like that. You got to make the PooLiSh because it's a long ferment, basically. And there's a concept in baking where the active yeast will be fermenting the carbohydrate source, which is flour, over a long period of time. And the longer it does that, the better flavor that develops. Okay. So in this case, we're actually putting a tiny, 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 tiny amount of yeast. You'll see that. And we're putting it in this bucket with some flour, and it's going to sit for 12 hours. Okay. And it's going to start out being a very small amount of yeast, but it will reproduce over the course of this evening as it sits. And tomorrow we're going to come back and it's going to be bubbling. So let's get started. It's going to be bubbling with activity, that awesome fermentation. Okay, so basically the recipe says we need to take 500 grams of white flour, 500 grams of water at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and then 0.4 grams of instant yeast and mix it all together. So I'm going to do that right now. We're going to take, this is going to be awesome. We're going to take 500 grams of flour. So he recommends specific types of flour, but he says if you can't find those, just use King Arthur, so all-purpose flour. The protein content really matters with bread. In this case, 11.7% protein content is wonderful. So I've got my scale here. It's measuring in grams. I'm going for 500 grams. There you go, 502, 500. There you go. So the reason we do grams instead of measuring with a kitchen or with measuring cups is because it's more precise. If I measure 1 cup, it might be, if I measure this same amount in cups, it says 3 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons is approximately 500 grams. But there's error. There's a margin of error there because you're not really sure if it's exactly 500 grams or if you've gotten a little extra because you kicked on a little more. Grams, measuring it here allows us to be consistent every time we make this recipe, which is awesome. Okay, then I've got to get 80-degree water, 80-degree Fahrenheit, and do 500 grams of that. Okay, so we're going to take, I have my cooking thermometer. Oh, shit. And I'm just going to be taking the temperature of this water here. We are at 78, 79 degrees. I'm going to try to increase the heat. We've got plumbing issues in this house. I'm going to let it drizzle. That's the hottest. There we go, 80 degrees. Boom. 79, 80. You're at 80. Okay. You're on. Okay, so we've got this. I'm going to zero this. And I'm going to put 500 grams of this water. Good, 503. That's good. Okay, set that aside. Then the last thing we need to do is add 0.4 grams of instant yeast. Now this scale does not go to the 10th decimal place, so I have to use a microscale. Okay, so this is a fun little thing here. Turn it on. Okay, super, super precise scale. So I'm going to put that there and push that button to tare it. We are in grams, and I'm looking for 0.4 grams, which is approximately a scant 1/8 of a teaspoon. So I'm literally just taking this. I'll go like that. This one's not really responsive. I think this scale might be a little messed up. Oh, shoot. This is not cool.
There you go.
There we go. It should be measuring it more precisely. I think it's kind of messed up. This is definitely more than I need.
You think?
Yeah, oh yeah.
From the last time you... There it is.
See, now it's at 0.6.
What do you
It
need?
jumped from 0 to 0.6.
How much do you need again?
0.4. So there's 1.0. Yeah, I don't know that I can get quite so small a measurement.
There you go.
We're going to call it. Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah, that looks about the right amount of yeast you put in bread.
I actually think this is a lot more. It should be approximately a scant 1/8 teaspoon. So basically, I'm actually just going to eyeball it. That is not how you do baking. We are doing it. Throwing it in there. Anyway, tiny amount. That's annoying. I'm going to have to look at this palm scale. Basically, okay, so yes. And then he's got instructions here. So basically, the evening before you plan to bake, mix all of it together and mix by hand completely until blended. Cover and leave out overnight at room temperature. The following timeline assumes overnight room temperature is between 65 and 70. Okay, so, and then the next step is after 12 to 14 hours. This is going to be really interesting. So anyway, basically, so this whole process, we're using our hand to mix everything.
Why not a spatula?
Because that's not as fun. There's no benefit to using your hand except that it's part of the artisan way, right? So anyway, this is extremely goopy, right? But this is great. 50-50 water and flour by weight. There's a lot. So we are well mixed here. This is looking good. I think we're good. I think we're set.
Then you're going to let it sit for a half an hour and then stretch it and then let it sit overnight?
No, this
You're
is
not going to do any pulls?
Nope. This is literally
Now you just let it sit in the fridge overnight.
Mm-hmm. No, not in a fridge even. So this book, all the recipes have 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, yeast. But they also use time and temperature as ingredients. Okay, so if you use these 4 ingredients and then you cook it, you let it sit at the wrong temperature or for the wrong amount of time, you get a terrible.
You forgot the salt.
No, the salt is coming tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So that's it. Wait for the morning.
Yep.
Bar.
Okay, so this is super, super goopy.
Okay, later.
We'll see how it is tomorrow.
Stay tuned.